Thank you. It is always a treat to come home, and it's never more of a treat to come home and be with the wonderful people, extraordinary people who've been involved in making tonight happen. And it's a wonderful, wonderful treat to be here with you, to come out and enjoy and be part of and learn and engage in this evening. This is the 20th anniversary of the Rwanda genocide. 20 years ago, more than 800,000 people, 3/4 of the Tutsi population of Rwanda, were massacred. And this is the 20th anniversary of my role as a member of the United States Congress representing this community and the 1st Congressional District, the anniversary of my failure to do anything about it. It is the 20th anniversary of the failure of our nation to take even a few basic steps. I'm not talking about invading a country. I'm not talking about dropping laser-guided bombs. I'm talking about a few basic steps that, had they been taken 20 years ago, hundreds of thousands of lives would have been saved. We've heard about the definition of genocide established in a treaty and a convention in the United Nations. It was coined by this man, Raphael Lemkin, who was a great advocate and attorney who pushed for justice and accountability. And he realized that there was no word for the mass slaughter of individuals, for attacking people not because of anything that they had done, but because of their nationality, or because of their race, or because of their ethnicity, or because of the God that they pray to. And he was astonished that there was no systematic way, no attempt to try to stop genocide before it had a chance to start. And so he coined this term. And we've heard what the definition is, but behind genocide is ethnic prejudice, is racism, is hatred and fear. It's extreme forms of nationalism. It's propaganda. But all of those things, if you add them up together and you take away a political will to do something about it, if you take away people's knowledge that something horrible is going on, and if people refuse to act to stop it, then all of those things, as bad as they are, can become genocide. And we can become accomplices. Back in 1939, more than 900 Jews boarded this ship, the St. Louis, in Hamburg, Germany. They headed off for Cuba, and ultimately, for many, they hoped the United States. And they sought visas as they crossed the Atlantic. They sought entry into our country and to Cuba so that they could be saved from Hitler and Nazi Germany. And when they arrived in Cuba, only a few were allowed off of the ship. They were denied visas. They were denied permission. And so the St. Louis turned around, and at night, they could see the lights of Miami as the ship sailed past the United States and back to Germany and back to Hitler, and for most on that ship, to concentration camps and their death. Political will. Fueled by ignorance and fueled by inaction. So I went to Africa, and I went to Rwanda, and I went to Kigali, and I went to a memorial center where 250,000 people were buried, so that I could come to terms with where was I And where were we? I was busy. I was running a campaign. I had a legislative agenda. I had speeches to deliver. I had money to raise. I had town hall meetings. And there were no questions in the town hall meetings about a genocide. There were no emails or calls. There were no questions about what we were doing or not doing about what was going on in Rwanda. And I went to Kenya because in 2008, things were very different in terms of outcome when violence broke out in Kenya. After the 2008 elections there, massive violence broke out, ethnic violence, and hundreds of thousands of people were threatened. 1,000 had been killed already, but hundreds of thousands of lives were threatened. And the violence was stopped. Why? I asked those in Kenya who were on the front lines of that violence, what was it? What was the most important thing that separated a mass catastrophe, a genocide, from the peace that ultimately prevailed? And they looked at me and they said, you, the international community, the United States, you shined the light of public attention on what was going on here in Kenya. And you made certain that those who were behind this knew that they were going to be held accountable, that the world was watching. And that, more than anything else, created the conditions whereby agreements were made and peace was established. And a massive catastrophe and loss of life was averted. Right now, there are millions of people whose lives are threatened by genocide. And you won't hear about them or read about them in most places until there is a genocide. Until it is too late. Millions right now are at risk. And so United to End Genocide was created to build a political constituency of people who care, of people who want to know, and of people who want to take action to stop a genocide. And we are 500,000 people from 186 countries engaged in the last year and a half in 1.4 million actions with one mission, and that is to end genocide. So there are things that can be done. First, we can find the truth, even when it's hidden. And we can tell the leaders who are in positions to take action and to tell them the truth. And we can connect with people who care around the country and around the world on actions online and offline. And we can get arrested. And we can spend afternoon in a DC jail cell with that other guy, I don't know. Clooney his name is, I don't know. Or when a country admits someone who is wanted by the International Criminal Court for genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes, Omar al-Bashir, the president of Sudan, when he is welcomed into a country who is obligated under treaty to arrest him, we can go outside of their embassy at night and take a large projector and put on the wall of that embassy scenes from the Darfur genocide, and emails and tweets and texts from people who care. This is about stopping a mass catastrophe before it becomes even worse. And a case in point I want to talk a little bit about tonight is Burma and Falmouth High School. All the building blocks of genocide are fully in place in Burma. We are marching to genocide as we speak. 140,000 people have been burned out of their homes and their villages. There's a systematic campaign of propaganda and hate that is filling village after village throughout Burma, saying that the Rohingya ethnic minority are evil, and that anywhere that there are Muslims, you can find someone who wants to destroy Burma and destroy Buddhism. And leading monks, nationalist monks, travel the countryside to talk about this and have people sign pledges that they'll have nothing to do with these people, and to support legislation that will put even tighter and tighter and tighter restrictions on their movement. And so you have an apartheid system in place for the 1.3 million Rohingya in Burma right now. They are not allowed to travel outside of their village, to get a job, to marry, to have children without permission. Without permission. 140,000 people are living in concentration camps right now in Burma. And they have been told that if they insist on continuing to identify themselves and call themselves Rohingya, then they will either be forced out of the country or forced into more concentration camps. And while I was there in Burma earlier this year, the president of the country announced that healthcare, the primary source of healthcare for the Rohingya people, 1.3 million, was going to be thrown out of that area and healthcare would be denied for these people. 1 week after that announcement, 12 women, while I was there, died in childbirth. People with AIDS, tuberculosis, and fevers. There was a man, a father of 5, a mechanic, who had come down with an infection. And the medicine that would have kept him alive was inside of that building in a locked cabinet, medicine cabinet. And he died because the government locked that door. And untold numbers have died, and 100,000 Rohingya have escaped on boats. It's the largest boat people movement that we have seen since the American war in Vietnam. 12,000, we learned 2 days ago, were lost at sea, are lost at sea. So what do? We record this. We tell the story of these families, of these people. We bring it to the halls of Congress. In this case, a bipartisan effort to put legislation onto the floor, to pass legislation, and to condemn what is happening in Burma and to call for the United States to do more. And then the president of Burma announces to the world that there are no Rohingya. And that the diplomats who are in Burma or doing business with Burma are never to say the name. And I met with an ambassador who told me that there was enormous pressure on the diplomatic community to just drop Rohingya, the word Rohingya. And when Secretary of State John Kerry was in Burma 2 months ago, he never said the name. And when a UN official was quoted in a report and mentioned the word Rohingya, she later apologized for saying the name. And I asked an ambassador to the United Nations, I said, okay, President Obama is going to Burma, and what do you feel, as someone intimately knowledgeable about what's happening there, what is the single most important thing he could do or say while in Burma? And he said, if the president would just say their name. If the president would speak truth to power, if he would raise his voice about the conditions going on there and said their name when he described the conditions, it would make an enormous difference. There would be tremors throughout the diplomatic community. I can't tell you how important it would be. So I told this story to students at Falmouth High School in an assembly. And I described what was going on. And I said, what would happen if tonight, starting today, what if today, we started an effort to communicate to the president to say the name Rohingya and to speak up when he's in Burma. So, in Falmouth High School, a number of students began to take photographs with a sign that says, Mr. President, just say their name, Rohingya. And they shared those photographs, and they signed petitions, and they shared it with their family and friends, and pretty soon this began to go around the country. And pretty soon this started showing up in places like Parliament in London, or a school in Bangladesh. People holding signs saying, Mr. President, just say their name. 10,000 people in all. More than 10,000 people. And last Friday, the President of the United States said their name. Said their name. Said their name. I can't tell you what is going to happen to the many, many hundreds of thousands, millions of people whose lives are in jeopardy right now, who are at risk of genocide. But I can tell you that there's something that each and every one of us can do to help to keep them alive and to end genocide once and for all. It means knowing the truth. It means sharing the truth. It means acting on the truth. Let's make a commitment tonight to do those three things. If you need information, if you want tools, if you want to know what's going on, go to our website, endgenocide.org/Maine. There are 2,500 Mainers who are part of this movement. And we'll inform you, we'll let you know what's going on and what you can do about it. So let's know the truth, let's act on the truth. Let's together be united to end genocide. Thanks so very much.